He's switching roles with the auto clone. Let me turn on my auto hoax.
Not even a proven fact. The floor curves into a spinning ball, and you can test for that.
The globe is an auto hoax.
Man, you must be trolling me. Scientific theories aren't what they are shown to be.
Yep, that's an auto hoax.
So what you're saying is you don't accept the claim that's missing proof, then you label it.
Exactly, it's an auto hoax.
Wow, sports is scripted.
All right, let's get started. 7/26/2024. This is Milky Smooth, Solomite Fly, Auto Hoax, produced by DJ Ready Rel. Big week. This is a big week. This is the end of the week. We're just kind of looking back. This morning I had I think about almost 2 hours and 20-minute conversation with JLB, and we premiered the first half of it a little while ago. Many of you may have been there in chat. And our conversation was really focused on our definition of predictive programming. And what I hope I made clear is that we're not guessing. We have a methodology. We were able to extrapolate from Robert De Niro's presence outside the Trump trial a level of predictive programming that I don't think we've seen before, because we caught up on a role he did, which was foreshadowing a future Trump, that didn't exist in 2010. And then the speech that De Niro's character was giving matches Trump's speech, and to add on to that, the shooter was shooting Trump over his immigration policy. Now, that wasn't a Freudian slip when I said Christ referring to Trump. It's because there's someone posted something here saying that Trump just said he's not a Christian. Let me go ahead and play this.
Get out and vote just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years, you know what? It'll be fixed. It'll be fine. You won't have to vote anymore, my beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I'm a Christian. I love you. Get out. You got to get.
Now, I think he said I am, but everyone's trolling everyone's statements. It kind of sounded like he said I'm not Christian. But it just had me thinking, did Jesus think he was a Christian? And if not, why would Trump? He's the head of it. He's essentially the golden calf that they're all worshiping here. Just past his Antichrist miraculous head wound survival stage, I think, unless there's another one coming. And we're looking at this not as a series of guesses or predictions based on some kind of arcane geometric calculator. We're looking at the stories, the scripts, as they have been told to us in advance of their performance on the world stage. And that's the nature of predictive programming. It's a form of marketing, conditioning, and habituating us to certain concepts and ideas long in advance of when they pull the trigger on this or that psyop. But it seems like the ear wound doesn't quite fit the big picture if we look at the rest of the scripting for this event, which is supposed to precipitate some kind of major reaction. And they're trying to bury this. The FBI is saying, oh, he wasn't shot. And then Trump's on the front of the Drudge Report right now, and they've zoomed in on his latest public appearance, suggesting that nothing's wrong with his ear. Shock images. Trump ear seems to have remarkably recovered. And I had thought it had been cut off. I thought, he's going to take one for the team, like a real actor, like these actors who put on a lot of weight for roles, etc. I thought maybe he's going to really have his ear surgically clipped. But no, he didn't go that far. But Trump's doctor releases an update after this meeting with Netanyahu, and people were questioning. And apparently it has him incensed. He's mad that people are questioning. So now you know how the families of Sandy Hook feel. Those of you who dared call into question the reality of their pain and injuries, etc. All right, let's see who's here tonight. Again, it's a Friday night. I understand if people have other things to do. But the auto-hoaxing and auto-hoax acceleration-ism doesn't take a break. P. Trippa, Thirst, Frank Murr, 3 up, 3 down, Mango Penguins, ears up. Appreciate that super chat there. And I'm looking, and the numbers are good. Our views are up, subscribers are up. Although YouTube did pull down the video on 7/13, the live stream where we were discussing the shooting as it happened. but that's all right. We didn't get a strike. But everything's been up. Monetization has been up, and so it's moving along smoothly, but we have to move even faster. We have a great opportunity here in the next few months to really define and then metastasize the parallel media. And that's the reason why I needed to talk to JLB about this, because I think that we're the cutting edge, and we need to amalgamate with all those who have made certain realizations, who've had certain paradigm shifts. Ted Stryker says part 1 and 2 were amazing to hear. JLB is always cool. Yeah, I got some pretty positive reviews so far. In fact, someone really liked his. Let's see if I can pull that one up. I'll get to it. Yeah, here it is. Here it is. The ad of the radiating the baby is so funny. A truther would be in shock with this ad, says a Nulfo. Yeah, it's one of those things you can't joke about. Trutherism is a very, very, let's say, dark religion. And they believe in all these things literally. You can't joke about this stuff. Nothing funny about it. Osman is the mind war inoculation czar, says Elephant Tusks. Oh yeah, I'm here to cure mind AIDS, and it's free. You don't have to join. If you have it, no shame. The government gave it to you. They injected you with it when you were probably before you were even born. So you all start out programmed. The deprogramming is something that takes individual and conscious volition. You can't be deprogrammed unless you're part of some shadowy government agency and they let you in on some aspect of the big conspiracy. Because we do have a programming class. We have the programmed and the programmers, but not all the programmers are top-tier evil villains. Most of them are dupes or compromised, and no better off than those at the bottom of this lie world order structure, which is structural ignorance, systemic ignorance and confusion. They designed it this way. But some people are shown some light to make them useful for the infrastructure's maintenance. For example, crisis actors. But these are very low level. These aren't the generals in the mind war. And we're getting information and we're putting things together, and we formulated a pretty solid methodology here based on what we've ascertained by studying their work and understanding what we're looking at. And that's really where this conversation properly belongs. It's not about real or fake, and the leftist news is communist and the right-wing news is truer or in some way trying to combat big government tyranny. Like, that's all just theater. It's all about worldview. And the worldview that you're supposed to plug into is one of perpetual war. You notice the war never stops. And they're always pitching on the war. They're always trying to sell you on the idea that there's some kind of war going on. And if there isn't anything going on, and you're agitated enough, you can be led through breadcrumbs down to Woke Town. Well, now you're at war with the right. Or you go to Trutherville. Now you're at war with the left and with Bill Gates. But it's always war, war, war. We're the only peaceniks on the plane right now, from what I can tell. We're the only ones not trying to start anything. We're not taking sides. And by not taking sides, I don't mean milquetoast neutrality or moral equivalency or ambivalence. None of that. This is a principled step back from their insane asylum. All right, Stuart McKenzie says, hello, fellow auto-hoaxers. Buzz Dean, what's up, Tim? Thank you for joining. Mango Penguin says, I'll stay up past midnight for this. I want to talk about the Olympics opening ceremonies. What we really specialize in here is metascript deconstruction. And I want to start moving back to formulating mind maps. One of my concepts here was to create detailed mind maps that show how we arrive at certain conclusions. And some of these mind maps can even be flowcharts that deconstruct bad arguments. But I thought, the IPS needs a whole series of posters that are basically mind maps and diagrams. Like I have one I've been working on that displays the programmed, the deprogrammed, and the programmers, and the various compartments within. But I want to spend more time on our media analysis and metascript breakdown, because I think we've been very much vindicated almost every step of the way, but we need to leave behind clues. We need to show our work. And we have the receipts. And so my next focus is putting together a few of the clues that were given to us following Leave the World Behind. So I'm starting with Leave the World Behind and White Noise. And those two movies and all of the associated fake news events which were predicted by these movies. And when we look at it from this perspective, it tells us something about what the future plan is. And a huge clue was dropped less than a week ago. There's some article about the 42 miles between Butler, Pennsylvania, and East Palestine, Ohio. So you have the toxic airborne event, which was, again, predicted by White Noise, and then the Trump event. So there's a lot of significance being placed right now on Ohio, but there are so many clues that we need to put it all together. And then Jasper, out in Canada, Jasper, Alberta, is like half burned, and I'm seeing a lot of the same type of crisis acting we saw after the Maui fires last August. So almost a year to the Maui fire anniversary, Jasper has something, and all the same agents are saying it was lasers, space lasers, etc. Dinah Southard says, pandas and birds are real. Being within earshot isn't always real. Yeah, pandas are real, 100%. Although I did get this, let me see if I can find it. I came across this thing on Reddit. I don't recommend Reddit. It'll turn you into a leftist shooter. Discord will turn you into a right-wing shooter. Okay, so this is from Tiffany Holland on TikTok. So this is like secondhand. This isn't like a source. I'm not saying this is a receipt. This is just what somebody else said. Maybe I'll get back to this. It's almost got to be a joke. But I don't want to feed the whole pandas are fake thing. But yeah, some people go for that. The only point I want to make about it is that the pandas are fake claim is a low info claim. Birds are fake is a fake conspiracy theory set up by a bunch of crisis actors who were mad that no one was buying any of their performances. And by the way, part 2 for the JLB Bondversation, and that was my 4th appearance on the Bondversations, episode number 51. Just go to johnlebon.com for part 2 if you want to get the full package. He has a 1-year membership, which is quite a lot of content, and I'm very much leaning towards resubscribing to it because I missed quite a lot. He had a pretty long conversation with Stavely about the Mandela effect I want to listen to. There's a number of conversations I've missed. The second half is usually where it goes a lot deeper, and in this case, if you like part 1, part 2, we did go a lot deeper into this conversation regarding synchromysticism and my position on it. Psyops Matter says a lot of weird things at the Olympic Games ceremony. Yeah, I saw something with the Statue of Liberty having some kind of a black eye. Lord Laney says they want you unburdened by what has been. Yeah, I heard that mantra. And I'm not surprised or shocked or even at all kind of entertained by Kamala Harris. I was just waiting for it because we saw it in the movie Fallout. You know, we're watching Fallout, Jonathan Nolan, Amazon, totally about, I think it's a PSA. It's about Fallout, post-nuclear Holocaust, world under a bunker. They arrived to the surface. Some people are still on the surface and had to deal with it. So you have this two-tiered society, the privileged who are safe, and everyone else who went to this Mad Max kind of world. But there's just so much propaganda loaded into these films and so many messages. But the scene with Betty Pearson taking the overseer's position by stealing an election, taking over Vault 33, with a little Trump foosball character with the blood spot on its head, all of that was just more confirmation for me that following the blood on Trump's head, we're going to see Kamala Harris take the lead role. And that's exactly what happened. So if you want to know what the future holds, just look at what was on Netflix in the past. It's quite literally that. And you don't have to watch the news. Just watch the entertainment, play video games that are current. They'll keep you up to speed because it's all about entrainment, not entertainment. Jay Digg says park fire in California started by a 42-year-old rolling a flaming car down a ravine. Now there's a place in, where is it? There's some place, I have to find out exactly where, on 4th of July where they fling cars off a cliff, but it's done with some kind of a monorail and it's safe, but it's a kind of an annual thing. 33rd Olympics. Let's go ahead and start with that. The 33rd Olympics opening. That's in that right now. It's happening in Paris, but there was something someone sent me. I'll see if I can find it, and it appeared to show a damaged Statue of Liberty. Here it is. And when the whole thing started, you had some kind of incident with a bunch of railways that were sabotaged. Fires were set. So here you have the Statue of Liberty, and there's something on her face. Okay, and above her head is a balloon, which has maybe some reference to the Chinese spy balloons that were drifting over a couple years ago. But what do you all make of this? There's something on the Statue of Liberty's face. Her crown is broken. In fact, she looks pretty banged up. And she appears to be on top of a meteor of some kind. I'm not really quite sure what I'm seeing here, other than the Statue of Liberty is pretty banged up, and that's the space station above her head. If you look on the top right next to the balloon, which is kind of funny, that is undoubtedly the ISS. What is the ISS doing in the sky behind the Statue of Liberty that has fallen? Are they going to knock it down? Drop the ISS on New York, perhaps? But if you look, you can see the solar array. And something else, when you look at the architecture of the space station, the solar panels, the solar array, in many of the photos, intentionally, in my opinion, look exactly like the Twin Towers. Virtual Reality Witness says the Olympics are an Illuminati ritual. The opening ceremony in transhumanism paraplegic is moving the Overton window. Well, the torch is a symbol of the secret societies, always has been. Not surprised. We shouldn't be surprised by any of this. Trump was on Bryson DeChambeau's YouTube channel golfing with him at 39 minutes. Bryson asked Trump the most impressive celebrity he's ever met, and he's met them all except Elvis. So Van Gogh points out that Trump was asked who are the most impressive celebrities he's ever met, and he's met them all except for Elvis. And when he walked on stage at the RNC, the lighting and the name Trump behind him, his reflection in the floor, it was 100% reminiscent of Elvis's comeback special. And it was right after his head wound. This Elvis thing has been pretty consistent. And Synchromorpheus had pointed out that when Trump was on the ground and he had the blood dripping down his face and the towel was over his neck, looked like his collar was up, it looked like Elvis sweating. Very Elvis-y. And none of those photos were coincidental. Citizen Z says Lady Liberty joins the Black Eye Club. Yeah, whatever happened to the Black Eye Club? I figured maybe the Queen died and she was the one that did all the punching. Because she's the only one who didn't have it, if you look at that entire circle of people. Virtual Reality Witness says the best conversation is one with awake souls. We live in a stereographic virtual reality. Does that mean it's 3D printed? You want to call in and explain? I will have to join johnlebon.com to hear that one as well. I've been looking forward to that one. Jay Dick says, I learned a lot about the Norse mythology by playing God of War. So the question here is, were you playing God of War, or were you worshiping the God of War through some kind of louche extraction exchange built into the entertainment medium? Like the GameCube with the X on it. Like that is some kind of soul-sucking device. Whatever else is happening here. Elephant Tusk says, I have to wonder if the people who design the Economist covers come up with these ceremonies. Well, yeah, it's the same club. It's the same body of symbols. It's the same type of messaging. And this is what we've been pointing out the entire time. There's a language that the general population... Like, I first came across this when I watched The Truman Show, because I was picking up on the esoteric. the stuff that the ticket payer, the regular viewer, is going to see Jim Carrey, a slapstick comedian in this kind of a corny movie, which I imagine is pretty terrible if you don't know the deeper meaning of it. It seems like some bad satire. But I was already aware of Sirius, the dog star, and the meaning of that particular symbol within the different contexts of initiatory societies, the Masonic secret societies, and all this stuff. So I was like, Jim Carrey is conveying, or there's a message being conveyed in this movie, and he's a fool. Jim Carrey's a comedian, so it's like, okay, this must tie into the idea of the fool, because in the Tarot, the spiritual journey, the journey of awakening to the false reality begins when one is a fool. They realize I don't have all the answers. So it's kind of an awareness of one's ignorance, but also it's a starting point. And that was Jim Carrey's starting point when he finds the dog star. But anyway, walking away from that, I realized there's a whole other level to this communication, and most people just don't care. That was one of the things that I found frustrating. Movie after movie. In fact, I started long before I looked into fake news or any of this stuff. I always carried a notebook with me, and I would be noting things in movies consistently. And I thought, it's not just that I'm a movie buff or I'm some kind of, into these Easter eggs, but I was genuinely interested. Who's behind the scenes and who are they talking to? Who is synchronizing these types of messages? And this led me into synchromistic explanations and alternative explanations for real world events, because it blurs these things intentionally. And it does involve a lot of, I think, intentional and deliberate confusion. Jim Carrey's a confusion agent. But the messages that are conveyed are part of a body of established symbols and an esoteric tradition behind it. So then the question is, why is there some kind of esoteric subtext to bad movies in Hollywood? And one other point that I've been really hammering on lately is that the programming works on you, whether you pay attention to it or not. In fact, I think the only way to inoculate yourself against it is to pay attention to it. If you're misinformed, it means you're programmed, and you're programmable, and you're going to be lockstep with everybody else. If you're uninformed, you're not going to be oriented in any way towards a position of situational awareness. You're going to be trying to play catch up. I'm like, oh, maybe there's a second shooter. Maybe there's a third shooter. Or like Jim Fetzer. He's like, well, maybe Trump found out that they were going to kill him, so he faked an assassination attempt on himself. Like, that's not even coherent. But this is a huge litmus test. Anybody who thinks the Trump event was real is in Normieville. Any truther who thinks there's a second shooter is being led in circles by an operative, chasing some red herring. They haven't figured out the game. How many second shooter stories do you need to hear before you figure out that that's meant to mislead you from the fakery? But, we are, again, cutting edge on this. We're not trying to look at the photography and listen to the audio and match it up with what gun experts say to determine what happened, because we're not confused. We're looking at this in the broader context of the meta-scripted history, which is performed on the world stage as a matter of public record, making things real, and then they cement it into this collectively agreed upon delusion, which we call, history. All right, let's move on. Jennifer Reeves says Beyonce introduced Team USA. Beyonce is an interesting character because of her role, in this particular context, her role in Super Bowl 47. That was the Blackout Bowl. And her performance preceded the blackout. And I think there's a lot of significance to this, and it may have to do with, a lot of it will have to do with, I think, even perhaps Jay-Z. And we look at these Hollywood characters, or these world stage characters, and they always have fascinating connections to the PSYOPs. Like, wasn't his Blueprint album released on 9/11? Let's take a look here. Beyonce introduces Team USA, a new ad. But last year, she was featured in with a lot of imagery involving horses, like apocalyptic imagery, like the Four Horsemen. So there's been some repeated occurrences. And then I believe she got her 33rd Grammy last year or two. Yeah, let me think. I think it was the 33rd. Meanwhile, Swift got hers, and she was. Yeah, here we go. Her album Renaissance put her total at 32. I thought she got her 33rd. I'll have to double check that. Oh, here we go. Here we go. To date, she's been nominated for 88 and has won 33 of them. So she got her 33 last year. And at the same time, Taylor Swift got one. And it was right when she had turned 33. We looked at this last year, and she's, again, been out here on the world stage. The horse thing, the apocalyptic horse thing, and then there was some other symbolism with her that we were noting. Dinah Southard said Beyonce's 33rd birthday was Joan Rivers' date of death. Right, I've heard this one, that there was some connection here, that this was some kind of a indicator that Joan's death was a gift, or Joan's death was intentional, having to do with whatever she blurted out about Obama before she died. She never had time to really deal with the blowback from a joke like that, because, yeah, she died during something apparently routine. Okay, again, a wounded Statue of Liberty. What are they trying to tell us? Okay, the balloon seems to be a reference. Now, this is interesting. Is this Jules Verne? What is the movie with the trip to the moon? It's like yeah, here we go. Trip to the Moon 1902. So this is a science fiction. And it looks to me like it was a silent film, and I'm sure most of you have seen it. And it has these wizards, in fact. I believe it has wizards, not astronauts. Look at all the little pointy wizard hats. And they launch people to the moon. But this whole trip to the moon thing is part of the opening ceremony. And what stands out to me about it is that we've seen some predictive programming using the word moonshot, the phrase, and we thought this might have to do with Trump. And then we have the recent Trump shooting, and this is another face, and it's got a bullet hole right in one of its eyes. So that's kind of interesting. What do you all think of that? Olympics 2024 opening referencing the the trip to the moon. Yeah, moonshot, says Plain Decoded. More moon god worship? Sure. I mean, you could look at it as, and I think James Shelby Downward talked about the Apollo mission as Apollo, the sun god, Saturn, the rocket, obviously Earth god. You're looking at the male god and the obelisk, and then you got the moon goddess, and that this was all some kind of great rite, which wouldn't surprise me. And what is the great rite? It represents the union of the god and the goddess. And in the context of witchcraft, where it's called the great rite, the chalice with the wine is the goddess, and the knife represents the god. But in the Catholic version, and it's all the same. I mean, Aleister Crowley performed the Gnostic Catholic Mass. The bread is the god, the wine is the goddess, and the chalice. So you got this, again, god, goddess, and the consummation, having both of them, represents their merging. And so it's not a coincidence that Buzz Aldrin performed the Eucharist, the Catholic Mass, on the moon. And this is something we talked about recently. But basically, the first thing he did when he got on the moon is he brought out his wine. It says, before Armstrong and Aldrin stepped out, 1969, July 20th, this is 55 years ago, Aldrin unstowed a plastic container of wine and some bread. He brought them to the moon from Webster Presbyterian Church near Houston, where he was an elder. Aldrin received permission from the Presbyterian Church's General Assembly to administer it to himself. In his book, Magnificent Desolation, he messaged that he radioed to NASA that he needed a few moments of silence to give thanks his own way. He then ate and drank the elements. Quote, I poured the wine into the chalice our church had given me. In 1/6 of the Earth's gravity, the wine curled slowly up the side of the cup. The first liquid ever poured on the moon, and the first food eaten here were the communion elements. Again, that's just pointing out that the whole lunar landing on the moon thing ultimately had some more esoteric meaning behind it. I've been calling NASA an Egyptian mystery school. And when I say that the rocket is an obelisk, yeah, it's basically the same idol that the Pope bows to 3 times a day. The only difference is his is made of stone and has the pyramidal top, which represents the elite, and the rocket burns and it flies up in this pageantry to heaven, literally. But they're both symbols of ascension and resurrection. The capsule in the rocket is an equivalent symbol to the capstone on the obelisk, and it represents again the elite, the elevated. Okay, let's see. There's that 1-6 again, says copacetic. Oh yeah, there's something else that came up today that I was looking at. It was the FBI is having its 116th birthday today. Today, the FBI celebrates our 116th birthday. That's 111 years of fighting crime and terrorism. So this was today. Happy birthday to the FBI. All of you feds out there, and those of you working for feds, I guess, happy birthday. Or I guess this is a big day for you all. Jaron. Who was the caller last night? Upside down guy. All you federal informants, Fed, Dearth, and all the rest of you. Alex Jones, QAnon Shaman. Who are all the feds out here? Do we need to sing them a happy birthday? Yeah, again, today the FBI celebrates our 116th birthday. What's the significance of this? Well, 116. And if the whole point of the FBI is to run psyops, then we can't ignore the significance of this number in relation to the psyop that we're expecting right now, the domestic 9/11, the one symbolized by 11/6 or 6/11. Gotham went underwater on 11/6, so again, this is highly significant. Ollie Goering says, so Abe Lincoln got headshot at 106. No, I don't know when Lincoln was shot, but the point of it is here, my point here is that the number 116 has been consistently tied to the next 9/11, and these are all codes. There's a reason why the pandemic kicked off on 3/11. And we've had many other events with these specific dates, and I think they all might tie in to the astrological calendar. Ultimately, 9/11, probably Jesus' birthday, but it's a new year on the Coptic calendar. And speaking of the dog star I mentioned a moment ago, we're still in the dog days of summer, where the dog star Sirius is behind the sun, and this is like a holy period for the Illuminati. This is whatever you want to call them. I mean, I think it works as well as anything else, but the rituals seem to always reach some kind of a crescendo. And last year on 8/8 was when the Maui event happened, and I was mentioning that there's something happening in Jasper. So I want to get to that really quick because I've been noticing a lot of people uploading videos. The Jasper wildfire. Out of a total of 1,113 structures in Jasper, 358 have been destroyed. In Jasper, a popular tourist town in Alberta, visitors and residents were forced to evacuate. Now, some people are blaming conservatives because they're not recycling. They're not worshiping Gaia fervently enough. You really got to worship Gaia. You got to recycle. You got to preach climate change. You got to have climate angst. You got to be Gaia fearing. If you're not Gaia fearing, you're part of the problem. But my take on this thing is simply that a lot of the people who are talking about it seem to be crisis acting, and it's very similar to what we saw after Maui. So here's an example. In Thin Air posted, green lasers were seen in the skies of Jasper, Canada before the wildfires. So he's got a picture of Bill Gates, and next to it he has green lasers. But in order to avoid a community note, he has a note here. By the way, the video is just an example of moving green lasers. This is not the actual lasers from Jasper. A lot of people are doing this now because they're getting hit by community notes that say, hey, this tweet is basically engagement bait and BS. So now people are being clever and saying, yeah, this isn't actually a real laser, but this is what it might be like. Like, when did truthers become psyop operatives, just as bad as the mainstream media, where they're fabricating news to sell you on an idea, and they do it for free. It's the strangest thing to me. Well, truthers in general just weird me out because they engage in all the tactics that they're against in order to advance a worldview that they have no stake in. A lot of these people are just propaganda mules. They're carrying memes that the government deemed safe for them to carry. These are approved conspiracy theories. Because the left is going to say, Jasper's on fire because of conservatives, because they don't believe in climate change. Now the right wing, the conspiracy theorists are going to say, no, this was obviously being done by Chinese space lasers and geoengineering and HARP and chemtrails. The problem here is that both of them agree that man caused these fires and that these fires are more significant or more destructive than previous fires. There's something special about these fires. And that premise gets by both parties, both sides. I reject that what we're seeing is, if anything, it's controlled, but I don't think there's anything out of the ordinary happening. Okay, let's see. Eddie F says the height difference with Biden is crazy. Skyfish says Lincoln shot in a theater, Kennedy shot in a Lincoln. Oh, yes. Lincoln's blood splattered across the Ford Theater, and Kennedy's blood splattered across the Ford Lincoln. It's very poetic, and there are many examples of this. Tomanoid says the good guys use green lasers. If they were baddies, it would be red beams. Good to know. And the laser scenario did have a predictive programming basis in Alice in Borderland, which is a series kind of like the Squid Games. Very violent, but it's one of these survival of the fittest games, pretty sadistic stuff. But it had these lasers, these green lasers that would zap the players that didn't make the cut. Okay, let's take a look here. We've got an image of Biden growing a few inches. What are the explanations? What are the normies saying about this? You know, I mean, maybe it's normal to have growth spurts when you turn 81. I mean, I'm not there yet. But look at this. That is significant. And I have to point out, too, that I've never seen somebody with Biden's skin. I've seen that at the Halloween shop. It looks to me like a Halloween mask. And I'm not being mean, just being objective. This looks like somebody bought a Halloween mask for Biden at the Spirit Superstore. And the height, I'm like, what is this, some kind of a joke? Is this Obama? Is this Obama in a Biden costume? And a lot of people are noticing he walked very smoothly. So some are saying it's a coup. There's something shady going on. It could be truth or bait to make you look bad. Kind of like how they reported he was dead, or they let you think he was dying. Although this doesn't help. Again, Dr. Jill, her eyes reach up to his chin. The new Joe Biden comes out and her eyes line up with not even his collar. I mean, look, that is significant. Anna Hoff says, I'm not trying to be a conspiracist, but today this was my first reaction. I even looked up their heights. The walk was fluid, says Big Fist. Haven't seen that in years. I guess you should fit me for a tinfoil hat. Like, what are they doing? They're creating conspiracy theorists. Ultra Magavon says his arms were swinging naturally too, not Joe's stiff arms out in front of him. Yeah, the body language, that set off a red flag with a lot of people. At first I was like camera angle, but the more I see, says Gone Fool. So here's an old New York Times photo, and if you compare it, yeah, this is a problem. To play devil's advocate, could she be wearing pumps in one photo and not in the other? The body double just seems far-fetched. Ben says they lie about everything. Nothing's too far for them. I wouldn't put it past them. Doris says cheap fake. Kevin says Biden took Viagra. I don't think it works that way. Bev says they jumped the shark here. Who's really running the country? Joe doesn't even look the same. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The rubbery face thing kills it for me. I just don't believe it. Sorry. I don't believe in Joe Biden. Does that make me a QAnoner? Because I'm telling you, I don't have a Q pipe. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid. I don't write fan fiction about JFK Jr. So you can't put me in that box, but I just don't believe in Joe Biden anymore. Commenter says Alex Soros is more political than his father. Well, Alex Soros is now getting married to Uma Abedin, which kind of creates this Clinton, Abedin, Soros kind of triangle. It's kind of an interesting dynamic. And she was the one who was connected to Anthony Weiner and Weinergate, which was blown up by Andrew Breitbart. And he probably got killed for it. I mean, actually, that's what I thought. Back when I believed all this stuff was true, I thought, oh, Breitbart probably got assassinated for destroying Anthony Weiner. Like this was retaliation. They put something in his wine and he fell face down when he walked out of the bar. And he was also bragging about hanging out with Bill Ayers from the Weather Underground and the Weathermen Underground terrorist group, leftist group that want to re-educate the conservatives and kill a quarter of Americans. And then afterward, he said he saw a video of Obama at a Marxist meeting that would prevent his re-election. Then he dies. Interesting tangent. But looking back on it, I don't believe it. And sometimes I wonder if Steve Bannon is just Andrew Breitbart in a grotesque rubber mask costume. I don't know, though. I couldn't imagine wearing that for 10 years. Tom Winwood says, maybe the terrible burden of being a president took a foot off him. Right. Now he's just standing up straighter. I don't even think that would account for it. I do think we were looking at a body double. I don't believe in clones. It could be a series of body doubles. There have been all kinds of wild theories like that. The CrowdStrike had to do with the disappearance of Biden, because CrowdStrike, something about it had to do with protecting the servers where the AI Joe Biden exists, and that they could no longer project him out for us because they have been somehow compromised, and that anybody could have accessed that and made Joe Biden do anything. Interesting conspiracy theory. And I'm not against conspiracy theories. I like storytelling, creative writing, collective creative writing, storytelling. It's all interesting to me. And the 4chaners are just deep into it. They make up conspiracy theories left and right, and they're mutually contradictory. But that doesn't faze them. I mean, how many times have you heard about Hillary Clinton dying at Guantanamo? And then she comes back and they're like, well, that was a clone. Well, you said that last time. Oh, they killed that clone. Oh, okay, so you had some clones that just weren't with the program. So they're killing off clones now. I guess I'll open up phones here for the next half hour. 505-510-4226. I've had a complaint about 4226. I was told that it's possible to read a 666 into it if you have the right gematria calculator and you do the math. Haven't done the math on it, so I don't know how that works, but there are some number phobic Christians who won't be calling because they don't want to dial the number of the beast. They're afraid it will summon Satan to their house. Donald Trump says he wants to build an iron dome in Florida to protect us. Trump pledges to build Israeli-style iron dome system. This reminded me of Trackdown, one of the earliest instances of Donald Trump predictive programming, and much like the Robert De Niro performance in Machete, this predictive programming for Trump pre-existed Trump in his present role. And here is the 1950s episode with the con man named Trump who wants to build a wall.
That's a good humorous segue to this, which is getting a lot of attention online.
I don't even know how you guys dug this up.
I know. It's a Western TV show from the 1950s. It was called Trackdown.
Right.
And it aired on CBS.
I know.
Right? And
Right.
it features, this is true, it features a con man, and the con man's name is Trump. And that con man tries to justify building a wall.
And he describes this wall, and it's not to keep Mexicans out. It's some kind of cosmic threat. And this connects to space Force, which is really an extension of the wall. And if you compare this, okay, Trump build the wall because the illegal immigrants. Space Force because of aliens. And the QAnoners believe in aliens, one, and two, from Tucker Carlson on down, the talking point on the right is that aliens are demons working with the government. So let's play a clip here.
Penetrate.
What do we do? How do we save ourselves?
You ask, how do you build that wall? You ask, and I'm here to tell you.
You're a liar, Trump.
What?
Like, even though I am the only one, which we...
Now, they're shocked by this, right? Their jaws are dropping. However, this is one of 10,000 examples we could point to. And I don't think they would be able to process it. They process this as an eerie coincidence. And the fact that they are shocked by it is because it is shocking. It is jarring. But the conspiracy theorists will see this stuff and they'll call it revelation of the method. Or synchromystics will say, this is the universe communicating to us. But I'm saying that this is long-term planning, history written in advance, acted out on the world stage, and it's multi-generational. Look at the space program, or look at various narratives like the alien invasion story, which has been around since H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds. So predictive programming is as old as media itself, and of course Hollywood has always been the pageantry for this modern world's religion, which is essentially Mystery Babylon crossed with sci-fi. Also note the episode was May 9th, 1958. Show called Trackdown. Episode was called End of the World. May 9th, 1958. Early example of Trump. There's a show called Quantum Leap about a time traveler, and a lot of the predictive programming with Trump has to do with time travel, like Back to the Future, Biff Tannen, Time Traveler. Well, May 10th, 1958 is a year and day that the show Quantum Leap sends their character back. They send him back to May 10th, 1958. And he starts off this episode in a cab, as a cab driver. And guess who's in the back seat? Donald Trump's father and 12-year-old Donald Trump. So these are two episodes that reference the date May 9th, May 10th, 1958, the same 2-day period, both referencing Trump. Very, very eerie parallels, eerie coincidences.
The con man is called Trump, and he says, you need a wall to save your lives, and only I can build it. And by the way, the sheriff of this town, who's the hero of the episode, the last line of the episode is, you're under arrest, Trump.
You're under arrest, Trump. Now, this makes a lot more sense in 2024, in 2023, 2024, than it did when we first looked at this back in 2016. I mean, they were talking about this in, this is 5 years ago. But you're under arrest, Trump. So we should have looked at this predictive programming not just as, oh, look, it predicted Trump, but it predicts what comes next. His arrest, and then...
So we're watching this thinking, this is not real, we can't include this, but we're curious enough to find out how much of it is real. The whole thing is real. It aired in 1958.
Yeah.
A con man called Trump tries to persuade people in a town that there is a meteor shower coming. The only protection is a wall that only he can build.
They're doing predictive programming analysis and they don't even know it because they're not insiders. They don't know how media works and the way they process it because they have the incorrect approach. They have the wrong operating system. The way they think this is a coincidence, there is no rational explanation for it. And there isn't from within their box. This is why they're so confounded. But if they were to go through my top 11 predictive programming clues that Trump's about to get a head wound, they would be able to talk about it all day. But they wouldn't have the right interpretation. But again, this is just interesting to see how blue pillars, quote, normies, process predictive programming.
South Park and The Simpsons beat.
I know.
South Park and The Simpsons
And
always seem to
I
predict
just want to, for our viewers and there's always going to be people out there who are going to think what you thought, this can't be real.
Yeah.
CBS did confirm that this was a real episode that aired on the network May 9th, 1958. It was written by the late John Robinson, who's credited on 18 episodes of the series Trackdown.
More than 6.
Now, Trackdown End of the World, TD. Of course, Donald Trump, DT. There's a few other connections. End of the World has a strong correlation to the movie Donnie Darko. And Donnie Darko is about Donald Trump. The director's father worked for NASA, which is an interesting connection there. But Donnie Darko is also about time travel. And it's all about this warning about the end of the world is a repeated meme, the end of the world. And so track down end of the world. We need to mind map a lot of the predictive programming of Trump. I mean, it's quite extensive. Tomanoid3 says, well, if CBS confirmed it, I guess it's confirmed. Deprogram Truther says, is the JLB audio too? Oh, audio only. Sure, it is. Although you can find video of JLB and put it on a little loop if you need something to look at. But no, we were just talking. There's no graphics. We weren't providing. In fact, he did provide, now that I think about it, he did add the audio from Hulk Hogan at the RNC, and he connected that to the predictive programming for 9/11 from Macho Man Randy Savage and Donald Trump. Here's a link to the first part, Bonversations, episode 51. It's just the MP3. You know, he did a video recently, and a lot of people were complaining. No, not complaining. It was Simon Dan. Simon Dan was bothered by JLB's green filter. He's like, why is he green? And he's wearing his hat, and his background's green. And like, this is on brand. JLB's color in his site, green. And I've always associated it with the green screen. And the green curtain on the Wizard of Oz that you're not supposed to peek behind. And I've made this connection before that the green screen is essentially the curtain you're not supposed to look behind. You're not supposed to look behind the fake backgrounds. And because if you did, you would see, oh, the space station's actually a movie set. And all these astronauts are dangling. Deprogram Truth that says that was a hell of a find, by the way. I happen to think that the machete find is even more significant, especially in light of recent events, that Robert De Niro was outside of the courthouse bringing in all these roles. Presidential assassin, from a role that inspired an assassin. An assassinated person who was assassinated on TV by this assassin, because he shows himself in both roles if you combine Joker and Taxi Driver. But the machete speech was very specifically an anti-immigrant speech that got him shot. And it was basically Trump. And we'd already pointed this out before realizing that the speech actually aligned with Trump's speech. And then yesterday, it was reported that the shooter had remarked on Gab that his main beef with Donald Trump was Donald Trump's immigration policy. So the shooter was shooting Trump over immigration. Just like Machete, shooting De Niro as Trump over immigration. These overlaps are incredible. Peppermint Patty says, book written in the 1800s, The Adventure of Baron Trump, the Smithsonian dare you to look up. Yeah, I want to look it up and read it. The only reason I haven't is I guess I should read it. I've just been convinced that the whole thing was written by some Trumpanzee, and they backdated it and they threw it into the system. But you're talking about Ingersoll Lockwood. But I may have to just go ahead and read it. I'm just afraid it'll turn me into a Q. I don't want to be a QAnoner. But they swear by this book. But the interesting thing about it is it has a Pence character. It's got Trump. It has November the 3rd in New York. It has communists rioting because of a disputed election. And the time travel. Again, with the time travel. Hidden Hand says the first shot was at 611. Yeah, that was one of the first things we noted. And I said, look, this 611 is connected to this right-wing thing, Timothy McVeigh's execution date. It's the inverted 9/11. It's the reference to the nuke. You know, the 11-mile film, 600 pounds, Oppenheimer wearing the K6 badge. 11/6/6/11 is all over the right-wing terror. specter that they've been that's been hovering over the scene for some time. Batman movie, Gotham Underwater, 11/6. Tim Ballard, Sound of Freedom. He's got that pendant with the Bible verse, Tim 6:11. I'm like, okay, Timothy 6:11, Tim McVeigh 6:11. What is this thing? And it's just been going on and on. So I've mind mapped it out, and I believe we have arrived at what it really means here. It also ties into this slogan that I've heard this slogan that right wingers have used for about 5 or 6 years, which is the armor of God. Richie from Boston talks about it. Although he should be wearing the gas mask of God, because he's really worried about chemtrails. But he was the one who first started talking about it. Ephesians 6:11, the armor of God. So I knew 6:11 was a right-wing meme. Then Steve Bannon, who's supposedly in jail, says Trump was protected by the armor of God. Now, he didn't invoke the number 6:11, but eventually this trickled down to where Jack Posobiec, who's like second in command under Bannon, Jack Posobiec posts 6:11, no context, just to put it out there so they could figure out what does this mean. So they took this to mean that God protected Trump. But when I saw that timestamp, I said, they're doing this to send a signal to allow the psyop to be interpreted through a spiritual lens by the true believers. And it worked. Now, instead of calling it a hoax, they're calling it the hand of God. Very similar to how synchro mystics look at things. Hidden Hand says the shooting at the 9/11 on Trump's hat at 6/11. Yeah, and the hat's a huge clue. 45, 47. It adds to 9/11. It's on the side of the head. And I think that's a reference to Kubrick. Or rather, that's something Kubrick put in there. It's a clue. And during the 4th of July, 4 of 7, the 4th of July parade, 2022, you had the Highland Park shooter. At the same time, the Parkland High shooter was in the news. He was on trial. But the Highland Park shooter had 47 tattooed on the side of his head before Trump had the 47 put on his hat, where it correspondingly goes right there on his right temple. And this shooter, Robert Cremo, had a newspaper copy of Lee Harvey Oswald on his wall, and he was going to Trump rallies. So this guy's going to Trump rallies. He's got a 47 tattooed on the side of his head. He obsesses over Oswald, and his number obsession was pretty extensive. He even had it on the side of his car. And there he is shooting up a 4th of July parade. And we had done a deep dive into the symbolism of this event since then. But this is when I had said Lee Harvey Oswald is now on the world stage. That they're gunning for Trump. This was just a day after. No, this was the day before Abe Shinzo, former Japanese PM, was shot. Abe, or Abe, but Abe, Trump's friend. And by the way, Abe was shot after refusing like 1.6 million vaxes, interestingly, the 16 number. So we've been looking for this eventual emergence of the next Lee Harvey Oswald. They've been telegraphing it for some time. Hidden Hand says they were saying divine intervention on every news channel like Sinclair Parrots. Yep, exactly. They interpreted this through, this is a false sign, a false Christ. And think about the Christification of Donald Trump. How far back this goes, this Christ thing. And look, he did say I'm a Christian. He didn't say I'm not a Christian. Whoever posted that on Twitter misheard it. But when I said, would Jesus call himself a Christian? Would Trump call himself? No, Trump is their God in a very real sense, in the world stage sense. There's a reason why they had him arraigned on that date, on the anniversary of MLK's assassination. They've created this martyr, but that was during Holy Week. On SNL, they had the Last Supper, and Trump was there. They've been merging these things. And if you remember, Trump sold his suit, the suit that he wore when he was arrested. He sold it in 47 pieces, and I believe, here it is. Suit yourself. This is from The Guardian. Trump offers scraps of his indictment outfit. So he had his outfit chopped up into 47 pieces so you could sell it. I mean, he could sell it. Donald Trump selling pieces of his mugshot suit for thousands of dollars, I imagine, for each piece. But anyway, what is the significance of this? The significance of it is Jesus' clothes being auctioned off by the Roman soldiers after they strip him. When they crucified him, they took his clothes and divided them, but his robe was seamless. And it goes off here about how they divided his garments and all that. But anyway, there's a Christ typology, is what I would call it. And it goes far back. They've also connected him with Moses. When Jim Caviezel was hanging out at Trump's Bedminster place and they were watching Sound of Freedom. Now, Jim Caviezel is a huge, I call him Jim Caviezel. Jim Caviezel is a huge QAnon hero. He's the guy who, at the age of 33, played Jesus Christ in Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ. So, 33-year-old plays Jesus. On the 5th take of the Sermon on the Mount, he's struck by lightning and he dies on the set. And I guess Mel Gibson gave him CPR, they brought him back. Now, we don't have that on video for some weird reason, but everybody believes it. Because why would Jim Caviezel lie? So this Jim Caviezel and Donald Trump are watching Sound of Freedom at Trump's place, and Jim Caviezel's like, well, no, I'm still Jesus. Trump is King David. So they elevated him to King David. But I kind of looked at this arrest and the correspondence with the MLK date as maybe even associating him with Moses. Because MLK gave the Promised Land speech, which connects with Moses. And they were kind of comparing Trump in this sense, that he might not live to see the MAGA land. Another one of these subtexts. Elephant Tusk says, Tim, have you ever watched any of Poppy's music videos? Apparently they're loaded with some weird stuff and predictive programming. I'll take a look. Just post a link. Roberto1978 says, how do you think Bitcoin crypto fits in this agenda? I think that's a great question. There are so many examples, though, of how Bitcoin and all of the elements of it are encoded into the predictive programming narrative. Like, what was that cover where it had all the cash currency burning? And then it had this coin, and it was like pretty much predictive of Bitcoin. But I'm not really into it so much as I think it's largely crypto in general. Seems to be selling a lot of false hope. I see a lot of Ponzi scheming. And it's not separate from the Q movement. The Q movement is saturated with all kinds of crypto scams. And the Q movement itself is a Ponzi scheme. You invest all of your social capital into it because you have some insider information and you found out ahead of everybody else, and there's going to be a big payoff. Mango Penguin says, we're up against a-holes that are controlling minds through the use of ridiculous religious ideas. Agreed. Peppermint Patty says, we wrestle not against powers and principalities and governors in wicked high places, Geneva Bible. Yeah, we wrestle not against flesh, but against the powers of the air. It's true. It's a mind war. That's just what we're dealing with here. And a lot of people are physically triggered, emotionally triggered. Their states are their mental states can be anxious because they're triggered by what's in the TV because they think it's real. They think it's a physical threat, and it's not. It's 100% mind war. It's all fake. And you shouldn't be processing this as bad news. Like, how dare him say that all these mass shootings are fake? Well, show me the real one. You know, we've done a thorough analysis of it, and media isn't what the population, the consumers, think it is. It's not, again, it's not a bunch of people with microphones and cameras running around gathering facts to fill you in. I mean, sometimes that's what it is. But generally, when we're talking about the big psyops, the big flashy events, the big spectacles, no, they are the production crew. The media can do both. You know how liars can tell the truth if they choose to, but then they can lie because they don't have a conscience? The media is a liar. And skilled liars only lie when it benefits them and when they can get away with it. If they lied all the time, you would never trust them. And the media often reports, it covers the world, it gives you a pretty good reflection of what's going on. They have their bias, and the bias generally is part of their marketing strategy because people want news that matches their bias. But they're not distorting the essential facts. They're at least being true and faithful to reality most of the time. But when there are psychological operations, then they activate liar mode. Now they're fabricating a story. You see how that works? Like a liar uses words to tell you the truth, but sometimes they decide to use words to distort your reality. So the media is a liar, but most people don't know how bad it is. And every one of these major psyops that has a partisan schism where the left has one interpretation, the right has the other, and it moves the whole psy war forward. Yeah, those things are all fake. T Latte says, is the Sonia Massey shooting fake? That one's horrific. We don't see it, so there's a question. The whole scenery of it, I thought it looks unbelievable. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So the Sonia Massey shooting could be real. It's hard to believe that a cop could be that aggressive. And she said something. She said, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. We're talking about the woman the police are at her house, and she has some water boiling on the stove. And the officer asks her to turn it off. And I think she's starting to pour it into the sink. And he says something about turning it off, and she says, I rebuke in the name of Jesus. And I think she's referring to the water, the idea that the water might hurt. I don't know what she was saying. It was kind of incoherent. But she didn't throw the water at him. But she made this statement, and the cop said, what did you say? Like he was offended by the name Jesus or something. And he pulls out his gun and puts her into a panic. And I think she drops the water, but he basically pulls the trigger. But the story is very unbelievable to me. Again, it just seems like senseless violence. It's 100% fakeable. And I thought the tattoos were very conspicuous. So we have these tattooed arms with, runes, Norse runes, which has certain connotations through the lens of media. So I thought this could be a scripted event designed to create controversy, maybe distract from Trump's ear wound. But it didn't strike me as real. But it could be. And if it is, then it's entirely psychotic. I guess I need more information. What is your take on it? Does anybody here think that shooting was real? And another reason why I question it is Benjamin Crump was there. Or as I call him, Forrest Crump. Because there's not a historically significant fake police event that he's not a part of. Sonia Massey, woman killed by police in her home, died by homicide, gunshot to the head. What we know about the deputy. He was discharged from the Army for serious misconduct. So totally a bad apple. But I'm not really quite sure. It just seems like one of these manufactured stories where the family's out there doing a press conference. They mentioned George Floyd. And whenever you have a fake event, you'll see that the press conferences, they'll reference other fake events because they all exist within the same fictional universe. Stop murder by police, say her name. I'm inclined to say fake until proven real. This could be a psyop, atrocity propaganda. I'm not convinced, but I'm convincible. Was anybody here convinced? T. Latte said, it was so shocking I suspended thought for a minute. And that's part of their strategy. Oh, don't look. It's so violent. I remember Wolf Blitzer. He's looking at the footage from the Thousand Oaks borderline bar and grill shooting, where 50 people from the Vegas shooting moved over here to Thousand Oaks, and these 50 people get shot at another mass shooting event. It's like that movie Final Destination. You cheat death, but it always catches up with you later. But Wolf Blitzer was like, look away, it's very shocking. So I look, and you don't see anything. You don't hear anything. It's literally an empty room. But most people look away. Do you want to watch a bunch of people in a bar get shot to death? No, you don't. So you look away. I'll take your word for it, CNN. But look what that has done. You have to be informed. And that's going to involve looking at their presentations. A Newful says, so have we the nuke stuff with the pink sky during the Olympics? Okay, pink sky during the Olympics. We have to mind map this whole concept as well. The color pink and the significance of pink. I'm glad you brought this up because I saw the opening with Lady Gaga with all these people wearing pink. Here she is. So what does this mean? Well, pink is the color of, Barbie last year. And Barbieheimer was connected. Barbieheimer is something the media created. That Oppenheimer and Barbie come out at the same time. Well, it turns out Oppenheimer, the nuke, represents the beast. Godzilla, a beast, is actually a metaphor for the nuke and came out right after. Barbie is Babylon. This is Babylon and the beast. And the pink is highly significant. And if you remember after Maui's fires, they sprayed pink soil tackifier. And we were following this color pink. And the new Godzilla versus King Kong movie, Godzilla's spikes turn pink before he blasts out his laser or whatever he does. Then we had the skies turn pink. King Charles's painting comes out. The background is pink. But what does this have to do with anything? Well, I think it's likely connected to the nuke scenario. Because the Barbieheimer thing is a big clue. Let me see if I can pull something up here. Like, I want to put these all on a mind map. All the instances, the very conspicuous instances of the color pink and all the similar symbols that are connected to it. But we'll get back to that. I'm just putting that down in my notes. Tominoy says Biden endorses Kamala on the anniversary of Barbie. The Barbie movie is worth going over again. It's worth decoding. I watched that movie in the theaters, and it was pretty much, I think, about the Babylon working with Jack Parsons. It was about the opening of a portal, a so-called Stargate. I also need to go watch Fly Me to the Moon with Scarlett Johansson. I just saw someone had mentioned they saw it. They said it was a really good movie. But Scarlett Johansson was in Asteroid City. And the protagonist in Asteroid City is a character that represents Stanley Kubrick. And Stanley Kubrick and Scarlett Johansson witnessed this fake alien scenario, this alien coming down. But my connection here is this. Scarlett Johansson hanging out with Stanley Kubrick in a movie about the staged reality. And now she's in a movie called Fly Me to the Moon, which is about staging a moon landing. And they mention Kubrick. He's not in it, but they mention it. So there's going to be some connections there. Somebody said it's a pink moon. Let me take a look. Is that true? All right, phones are open for the next 5 minutes if anybody has anything to add. I'm getting a lot of voicemails. I'm going to go through them and then play some of them live tomorrow on Infinite Plane Saturday. I'll put out an open request. I do want to rededicate ourselves to meta-scripting and mind maps. It's one of the things we really shine at. And I think meta-scripting and mapping out our reasoning is really the way to go forward, because we have, I think, interpreted and deciphered quite a lot. And this is, in a way, this is almost like, I would call it deciphering is one way of looking at it, but reverse engineering. And what we have done with this Robert De Niro, Donald Trump predictive programming, and all the other instances just demonstrates that, yeah, we have a method here, and we're able to extrapolate from any fake news event the bigger meaning of it, what it means in the zeitgeist, just how faked history is. Here's a couple of other things regarding the Olympics. This was talked about today in our Discord server. The hat, the red hat, looks like a Smurf hat, the Fereges. It's the symbol for the French Revolution and the American Revolution, but it's the mascot for the Paris 2024 Olympics. So we're looking at these hats. I thought these were birds. Okay, these are hats with little faces. And I'm zooming in on one of these hats. And you'll note it has one leg. It has one of these attachments for runners. And I'm thinking this might actually be a reference to this. Again, the Phrygian or Liberty cap is a soft conical cap with an apex bent over. So the mascot for the Paris Olympics is a red hat. First originated in Persia or modern day Iran. Iran's all over the news right now. And I connected it to the initiate into the Masonic fraternity. They have one pant leg rolled up. And this is the initiate. This is the entered apprentice on his way for the sacrifice. So there might be a connection here. I think there is. We're going to continue to look at that. He also pointed out that the hat relates to Mithra and Mithraism. And of course, Mithra is a lion-headed god. And we're in Leo, so there may be a connection here as well. Just kind of putting together a few things. We talked about lasers in the sky over Jasper, and I mentioned that there seems to be a lot of crisis actors, that Jasper could be the new Maui. Let me go ahead and play this. This is an example of what I think is a crisis actor, hyping up that Maui is not a natural wildfire, but it's not climate change, but it's some kind of secret direct energy weapon.
They burnt down half of Jasper today. It is ashes. And Jasper, Alberta was the locals' playground. Banff is completely corporate owned, but Jasper really truly was a local gem. And the amount of phone calls and cries that I received today from friends in that area, this is hard.
Secondhand grief. And we saw a lot of this with Maui. People pulling over in their cars, half crying, talking about how they know people who know people are suffering, where's the missing kids. But we're not seeing the victims. We're not seeing the damage. It's just somebody's story. And I think this is someone who's paid some kind of a gig. Like, is there some OnlyFans for crisis actors? Like, where do they recruit them from? But here she is telling her story about how Jasper is gone, and the headline says, "Breaking green lasers in the skies over Jasper." I don't find any of these second or third hand eyewitnesses to be convincing at all.
For like 4 years, because they pretty much lit our area and all the farms around us last year, the year before that, with cattle being displaced, farmers being displaced, houses being burnt down. And I don't know when Canadians will wake up and realize that you are under attack.
You're under attack by Chinese space lasers or Jewish space lasers or direct...
Any dog shit. It'll solve the problem. But no one's asking why forest management has been taken off. Why?
Anyway, there's your right-wing interpretation for what the left wing is going to blame on climate change. A couple of things. We noted the the trip to the moon with a bullet in the moon's eye is one of the images featured at the Olympics Paris 2024 opening. Then I posted this link here that shows the Statue of Liberty broken up and crumbled, and the space station is right passing over its head. So here you have the ISS and the Statue of Liberty, and behind it is a balloon. What's the connection? I'm not quite sure how these three connect, but the balloon has been associated with weapons, Chinese space lasers. The broken Statue of Liberty, obviously it means, French Revolution has been one of the themes at the Olympics. In fact, they had an image, the band Gojira, which is Godzilla, played the opening music. So you have this heavy metal band, Godzilla, nuke reference, playing the opening, and they show Marie Antoinette with her head chopped off on a window. Let me see if I can find the image of it. It's pretty grotesque. Let them eat cake, guillotine, French Revolution, all interesting imagery. But this was on the opening to the Olympics today. They had a, let's see if I can find a clip of it. I posted it in Gilded. Anybody else see anything else we should note here? A. Newful says, crisis actor OnlyFans could make millions. Yeah, we ought to start it. We ought to start it. Like, just basically, if you're an actor and you're willing to perform in the role of basically a false witness, if you can bear false witness and you look good in theatrical blood, set up an account, put up your monthly fee, and we will provide a steady supply of gigs for you. Okay, again, the band is called Gojira, and here's an image of the band. They have flames blowing. Flames in the windows. They have this head. This is the image right here. It's from Metal Injection. This heavy metal site. So here you have the band playing on the right, and on the left you have Marie Antoinette in a red dress holding her own head. Absolutely insane moment for the metal world, it says. There's fire, there's a headless woman. We need this pro shot. Gojira performs at the 2024 Olympics. And again, Gojira is the original name of Godzilla. So we were talking about the Pink and Babylon and the Beast, Barbieheimer. Well, we had Lady Gaga coming out in the pink. So they introduced that. And now we have a reference to Godzilla. And now we have a severed head to throw into the mix. Very, very interesting development here. Okay, this has been great. We're going to do Infinite Plane Saturday tomorrow. Right now I'm just catching up. I uploaded about 4 hours of archived content. So if you have missed the last 3 days, I haven't had time to upload anything until just a few hours ago. Also, if you remember it, at John the Bond's website, you can listen to part 2 of that conversation. But I also made it available to paid members of the Infinite Plane Society. So if you're on the main website, Patreon, or if you're a member on this YouTube channel, you can watch part 2. So part 2 is paywalled. You have a few options. You can listen to it here, or you can join JLB's site, which I highly recommend for a lot of reasons, and there's a good chance I'll be joining it this weekend. I just have to wait for a few more auctions to close, and I may just do it because I want to catch the conversation with Awake Souls, Brian Stavely, Armin Ree, and a few others. Hours and hours and hours of content. Ollie Goering says, never been to Hollywood, but on YouTube people claim that Hollywood and Hallmark employed a lot of Canadians before the cooties lockdown. I'd like to know more about that. Okay, so I'm just going through the rest of my notes. I believe we've covered everything. This is really interesting. I didn't catch this earlier, that the space station makes an appearance behind the Statue of Liberty that's been blown up. This has got to mean something. And now that I think about it, it looks like some kind of a space rock she's on. So the Statue of Liberty is on some kind of a meteor, a space rock. What is this implying? But again, the ISS, there it is. We've been looking for it. We've been looking for that thing for weeks and nobody has seen it. Yeah, those of you wondering what happened with the ISS flyovers, nobody saw anything. Or nobody recorded evidence that could be considered a spaceship. So it was inconclusive from one perspective, but from my perspective, I think it was nice to be able to shift the burden of proof back to NASA. And, people are welcome to do their own observations. Go find me a chupacabra if you want. But our objective here is to maintain the skeptical position. And the instant you accept the burden of proof, you have stepped out of your skeptical position and entered into the position of faithful believer or trusting viewer. You can't let them take you off your stance, off your platform. Here we are skeptical, meaning I'm not going to believe without evidence. Oh, come on. A lot of people have seen something. Give us the benefit of the doubt. No, the instant you do that, you have surrendered. You're no longer the arbiter of what you believe. So don't let somebody shove the burden of proof onto you and say, oh, you just have to look. You can reject that. Bring out your Hitchens razor. I reject these claims all the time. But I accepted this as a challenge just to make the point that it's not as easy as they say, and if it was, we would all be finding evidence for it quite readily. Anufel says she's over the planet Mars. Okay, that could be. We're looking at the Statue of Liberty if you're just listening. It's the Statue of Liberty, and she is on some kind of space rock. What does this mean? The Earth gets blown up and she's on a chunk? But there's a balloon behind her that's red and white. And again, red and white, the Templar colors, the red symbolizes the goddess, the white symbolizes the god, the wine and the bread. We've seen this ritualistically expressed during Super Bowls. Rihanna in red, the male dancers in white. We saw it in the following Super Bowl. Alicia Keys in the full red bodysuit. Usher in the white with the phoenix, and the phoenix is a Christ symbol. So again, Christ, Magdalene, Babylon, beast, red, white. Pink, the Barbie pink represents the merger of Babylon and the beast. And inside of the chalice, which is the Holy Grail on the tarot cards, it's a pink liquid. This is Aleister Crowley's design. And he said it represents Babylon and the beast. And that's why you have the woman astride the beast. And my point here is that these colors, the red, the white, the pink, these are all part of this broader collection of symbols that we've been noting. And it's all very consistent. And the pink symbolizes, again, the nuking of Babylon. I think that's what Barbieheimer ultimately means. Babylon getting the nuke. Mango says, what does the cheese represent if the moon's made out of it? The moon's made out of wood. All the moon rocks have been wood. Ollie Goering says, I noticed that content creators that live near Hollywood that aren't in showbiz but are adjacent are paranoid because of gang stalking. That part of the earth is weird. A Newful says, Tim, can you stop it in the white stuff over planet Mars? Yeah, sure. Let's take a look. You know, I saw something on Mars the other day. And I don't know if it was a volcano or a chemtrail, but it looked like, I think they said it was a cloud. I'm not going to tell you what it looks like to me. I'll see if I can find it. Anyway, we're out of time. We'll get back to it tomorrow. Tomorrow's Infinite Playing Saturday. I do think there's something to Hollywood and gang stalking. I do think so. And I think it may have to do with the thelemic cult, which I think is a huge part of it. Till says Lady Gaga's in the new Joker movie. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Because the Joker movies have been consistently tied into this meta-narrative. Again, Trump's arrested on Heath Ledger's 44th birthday on 4/4. The 4/4 is another double cross reference. Double cross means second coming. Joker 2, J2, second coming of Jesus. And who's the new Joker that replaced Heath Ledger? A guy named Phoenix, another Christ symbol, and a symbol of resurrection. Joaquin Phoenix, who throughout the movie is represented as a burning man, the flames behind him. The symbols are incredible here, the connections and the overlapping, the archetypes that they superimpose over these actors. I mean, you can find many examples, and Finis Temporis has a great series on these things where Joaquin Phoenix has been represented as a Christ in nearly every single movie he's in. Even like 8mm with Nick Cage, where he's hunting some snuff film. In that movie, there's a scene where Joaquin Phoenix's character is literally crucified on a St. Andrew's cross and shot with a crossbow. But her role in this as Harlequin. So Harlequin, I think, is a reference to the Great Harlot, the Whore of Babylon. It's another reference. And so she is the consort to Joker. It has that same kind of dynamic, Babylon and the Beast. that they play off of, this duality. But the next Joker movie comes out on 10/4, by the way. Now, the other thing, too, on 4/19, Trump's on trial and Maxwell Azarello burns outside. And Azarello happens to be the name of this DC comic author who did all these Joker and Batman releases. And he's a writer. But interestingly, when Maxwell Azarello burns on the anniversary of Waco, on the anniversary of the Oklahoma City bombing done by Timothy McVeigh, who we referenced earlier, that has a great deal of significance for him to be burning outside the Trump trial, considering Trump kicks off his campaign in Waco. And you could look at his movement as Waco's revenge. But his burning, this Burning Man, was definitely to represent Joker. There's a few connections here, but you have this Joker reference in how he looks, and of course the name. But the date 4/19 is also the date of the shot heard around the world. That was something else that recently came up. We didn't know it at the time. But when Trump was shot, they called it the shot heard around the world. The QAnoners ran wild with that story. But look at this date here. The shot heard around the world is a phrase that refers to the opening shot of the Battle of Lexington and Concord on 4/19, 1775. 4/19. But back to that event where the guy burns himself and the story around it. It connects Waco. It connects Timothy McVeigh. It connects the shot heard around the world to Donald Trump, who was inside at the time. And of course, the name Azarello is this Joker-esque connection. But then, at the same time, you had the Copenhagen Stock Exchange burning, this big spire that they called the Dragon's Tail. So this guy's burning, the Dragon's Tail at the Stock Exchange is burning. And he's burning himself over a protest of fascism and big money. So the money connection's there. And this thing is burning out there in Copenhagen, Dragon's Tail. And you find out that Azarello is from St. Augustine, which was burned by Sir Francis Drake. And this is the time that Kendrick Lamar was burning Drake. There's this dissing back and forth, but the dragon thing was a reoccurring theme at this time. So we're looking at this Burning Man. Copenhagen has this fire. There's this overlapping story with Trump and 4/19 and Waco and Timothy McVeigh, who was executed at 33 by electric chair. Dave Koresh was 33 and was incinerated. I mean, it's such a layered story, and I'm barely halfway through it because it's so dense, and that's why we need to do mind maps to fully explain the totality of the story. But we're looking at the reports of the burning spire in Copenhagen, which is again called the Dragon's Tail. Here he is. Spire falls after fire breaks out at Copenhagen's oldest stock exchange. And in the photography that the news provides when it first starts burning, you wouldn't believe what we see. And this was pointed out by Lean Dion. Batman. A DC Batman movie tapestry, huge poster, right there in the same shot as the burning tower. Can't be a coincidence. And so we look up DC, Batman, and we look up Azarello, and you find the Brian Azarello, one of the writers, and you find that even his Joker looks like, his Joker in a mugshot image looks like Azarello in the photography they gave us. And then the last Trump trial event where you had Robert De Niro outside. Robert De Niro was in the last Joker, and he's killed by the Joker. So there's another connection. He's killed by the Joker. And on 4/4/2023, they were filming Joker 2 outside, and it was some kind of a riot scene. Anyway, we can go on endlessly. This is far deeper than a 1958 TV show that had some eerie coincidences. This predictive programming has been going on since long, long before here we go. We started paying attention. I mean, this has been the model of media, the actual infrastructure of media. It's designed for this. They are news benders. Yeah, Joe Biden just passed the torch could be a symbol. The passing of the torch is obviously a very important symbol. Statue of Liberty holding a torch. Now that's interesting too. She's holding a torch and she's been destroyed. I've heard a lot of things about it. Some have said Statue of Liberty is the god Apollo. I've seen this convincing one that the Statue of Liberty is Lucifer. And that's because if you look at the traditional images of Lucifer, you can find, here's a good one. And this would be an image from, I believe, here we go, Paradise Lost. The common themes here, yeah, they kind of look the same. The statue of Lucifer, you see the chain around his ankle, and then Liberty has the chain. And then something else too. The Statue of Liberty is made out of copper. And copper is the metal associated with Venus. And Venus is the star that's also known as Lucifer to the Greeks. So you got the Venus-Lucifer connection as the Latin name for the morning appearance of the planet Venus. And then, of course, if you look up copper in symbolism, you know, like Mars is associated with iron. Venus is associated with copper. To the alchemist, Venus and copper. So there you have another connection. I've come across these before, even in occultist writings, that, yeah, they worship Venus as Lucifer. All right, this has been great. I have to leave now, but we'll be back tomorrow for Infinite Plane Saturn Day. Sign up, join my site, join JLB. I would just say support anybody who's part of the parallel media, because every parallel media, every media deconstructionist is going to be a part of this Autohoaxology 2024 planet-killing asteroid that we are expecting to arrive sometime in the next 60 days or so. All right, this is Autohoaxology by Symbia. Thank you all for your comments, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Don't believe in chemtrails, I don't live in Truthville. Just because you saw it on the screen doesn't make it real. I don't take the red pill, I don't take the blue pill. I just choose to follow my dreams, Autohoax and chill. I stepped off the world stage and I moved away from all the fake outrage and the hearsay. And I don't give the time of day to those that naysay, because they got a bad case of the mind day. I stepped away from the game entirely. I won't be caught up in their lame dichotomy. I stepped away from the cage entirely. I'm free today and my mind's been set by reading Autohoaxology. Out of the control system finally. I know where to go if you follow me, 'cause I've been reading Autohoaxology. Nothing can bother me. Autohoaxology. Won't put the screen before it's blasphemy. I won't become another mind war casualty. I came up out the realm of possibility to take the helm of this reality. 'Cause I've been chillin' reading Autohoaxology, rejecting all the expectations of the auto-believer, to become a new creation on the raft of receivers. Standing on the sword of truth, I step the backs of deceiver, demanding burdens further proof from all the hacks and believers. I stepped away from the game entirely. I won't be caught up in the lame dichotomy. I stepped away from the cage entirely. I'm free today and my mind's been set by reading Autohoaxology. Out of the control system finally. I know where to go if you follow me, 'cause I've been reading Autohoaxology. Nothing can bother me. Autohoaxology. Won't put the screen before it's blasphemy. I won't become another mind war casualty. I came up out the realm of possibility to take the helm of this reality. 'Cause I've been chillin' reading Autohoaxology. Suspending all the judgment, you won't get a reaction. Won't defend it, I won't budge until I get all the facts in. I won't argue with the bots about the next current thing. Crying over the fake bodies like a bitter death queen.